In the last couple of weeks, I've been making many videos on various countries and some amazing pieces of infrastructure that I've seen in those countries. This video is about those pieces of infrastructure and basically interesting places that I've seen and found while looking at maps. So this is my top 10. We're going to start off with Canada. In Canada, through my research, I found that they have the world's largest tailing dam. A tailing dam is basically a man-made embankment like a big wall basically, and inside the wall it's enclosed and you keep all of the toxic materials from mining. And this is the Mildred Lake basin, where they keep all of the materials from the mine at the oil sands in Alberta, Canada. The oil sands is one of the biggest pieces of the economy in Canada, so it's very important. And even the fact that they have these massive pieces of infrastructure basically power their economy. So this is the world's largest. It's about 18 kilometers long when we add up all of the lengths and sides. And you can look at my Canada video for a bit more on that specific one. This is the mine in general at Fort McMurray, which is down here. And it can be seen quite a bit out when you zoom out to space. So that's definitely one of the more interesting pieces of mining infrastructure that I've seen. Moving on, this is the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal was always very interesting to me. I never explored it in detail before. Without it, a lot of the world's trade just wouldn't work as well as it does. And it's been having some issues regarding the water. Basically, there's not enough water up in the dam because it's a lock system, it's not a sea level system. And I was able to see all of that from the maps. I could see all of the boats that go in and out, ships, big container ships. I could see the locks, and if I zoomed out even more, I could see from space why exactly the Panama Canal was built where it was built. And with a bit of research that I did on it, I found out that over 25,000 people died in the production of the dam. And there's just a very interesting story. And here again, I want to show you the boats waiting to go into the dam, into the canal, I should say. I misspoke. Okay, that was the Panama Canal. Next is the West Saharan wall that the Moroccans built to keep in control of the territory. This is a 2,000 kilometer long wall and is extremely, extremely new and interesting to me. I'd never seen this wall before. It reminds me a bit of the Great Wall of China. I'll zoom in for a minute to show you the army, basically the army little depots or defense units, and massive amounts of sand have been shifted in earth in order to be making it more easily defendable. This wall stretches all the way from the sea here in the west and goes very deep into the country, goes all the way along here and eventually goes up as far as around here and goes all the way up then towards Morocco. It's one of the most craziest pieces of infrastructure I've ever seen, and I had to definitely mention it in my top 10. Next, we're in West Sahara one more time. West Sahara was really, I think, my favorite video that I've made so far. This really long line here is the world's longest conveyor belt. It is moving material from the Bokra phosphorus mine, where phosphate is mined in order to produce fertilizers. This is one of the biggest mines as well. I think it's 20 kilometers long, thereabouts. So a 20 kilometer mine feeds material into a 100 kilometer conveyor belt. We can see the conveyor belts here when we zoom in a bit. Here is this kind of a depot where materials moved and shifted from these kind of refined layers of phosphate, I believe, from these initial conveyor belts, and then sent all the way off to the sea, to El Marsa. You can just see it there. I will zoom out a bit here and then zoom in again to when it arrives. Here you can see there's desert sands kind of building up on one side of the conveyor belt. If I quickly turn off the labels, you can maybe see the conveyor belt there. Yeah, you can even see it from space. It really is the most impressive thing. What a crazy project this must have been to even think of building, never mind putting into place the El Marsa. And we come into the another big kind of storage depot here. The mine, the conveyor belt from the mine goes even under a road here, and I showed you images of that in my Western Sahara video. And then boats will come in to pick up the material and send it out to the world. Okay, next we're looking at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is a desertous country just like Western Sahara, so they don't have much green or much water to speak of. But where there is some green, we have these very interesting round fields. These have been coming up more and more in my videos in places where water probably isn't as bountiful from the sky, so they have to do it artificially by bringing water up from aquifers, which I also covered in my Libya video. And then they have these really cool irrigation systems where basically water is moved out in an artificial manner. So if you would have seen this, if I would have seen this any other day, it would look like aliens to me. You know, this is like something from Mars, but it's actually quite a common thing around the world, specifically in Saudi Arabia. Next, I was in Australia, and in Australia I saw something really cool: 2 kilometer long trains producing, transporting iron ore from Australia's mines out to its ports, where they go to the rest of the world, to places like India and China. The trains are really, really impressive and really, really long. As my 2 kilometer train video suggests, that I also have on the channel. Here are the trains parked. You can see here is the locomotive, and there's just so many wagons on these, hundreds and hundreds of wagons. You can see the distance there is insane. Like, that's still one train all the way up to there, and there's just so many of these winding their way through Australia. Here you can see the trains coming in to unload themselves. These are empty carriages; those are full wagons there, and you can see when we go all the way up to the bits of infrastructure emptying the trains, we arrive right here, and it's just a really long distance and something that I hadn't seen before, just how long those trains are. So that was definitely something amazing that I saw. You see here again these storage depots for the iron ore, which then eventually gets shipped out at the ports here to these boats. Plenty of that to be seen in Australia. And I also looked at the mines in Australia as well, where they come from, deeper inland. Moving on to North Korea. North Korea and South Korea, I haven't done a video on North Korea specifically, but definitely I've done one on South Korea. Here's South Korea. There's the border. We quickly turn on the labels again here. There's the South Korean, North Korean border, the demilitarized zone. Turn it off again. The border crossing itself is over here. You may have seen these blue buildings on the North Korean side on news clippings. But what I didn't know before was that North Korea's got a model village. Here is a viewing platform in South Korea from where you can see the model village. Over here, it has got a big tower post, like an Eiffel Tower, with a big tower flag on top of it. And these buildings are meant to look very nice, so that the South Koreans and the rest of the Western world can say, oh, North Korea isn't actually that bad when we see these nice buildings. That's why they call it a propaganda village, because apparently it doesn't really reflect the true nature of the North Koreans' living standards at all. Moving on. This is the Khyber Pass in Afghanistan, and these are convoys going in and out of the Khyber Pass. This must be one of the most interesting things I've seen in terms of truck transport. It just is like a massive amount of caterpillars running in and out of this really long pass between Pakistan and Kabul. It is one of the main ways into Afghanistan, hence why so much material is getting moved through there. There probably isn't any great alternative to bring stuff into Afghanistan, because there isn't any decent waterways into Afghanistan. Equally, probably isn't much in the way of trains. And there just are some massive depots here where containers are just parked, and there are just trucks everywhere parked in all sorts of ways, almost chaotically. Probably truck drivers taking a rest before moving on to the rest of their journey. Here we have a load of timber in Vancouver. Timber being sent downstream. Again, something very interesting that I had only seen in my Nigeria video. I'm sure it happens in many countries, but as we just said in the Khyber Pass, moving things by water is much better than moving things by truck. And imagine how many trucks it would take to move just that amount of timber, never mind the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pieces of timber stored on the river in Vancouver. And in my Canada video, I showed you this in a bit more detail. Here are some of the yards where a lot of that timber is eventually ending up, and even all the way out as far as the sea. This is timber being stored even as far as the sea here at Coward's Cove on the Pacific. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. One of the last things I'm going to show you is this EU island off the coast of Africa. It's called the Island of Death due to these very dangerous reefs. Historically, it must have been quite difficult to reach this island. And even today, people from the island of Comoros, these 3 Comoros islands, make the dangerous journey of 70 kilometers or 100 kilometers, depending from where you start, to the island of Mayotte, which is a French department, which means a French province. It comes under the French, under French jurisdiction, and even has the euro. Therefore, being a European island off the coast of Africa, I thought that was a very interesting story and very cool indeed. So yeah, that's basically all I wanted to show you. Those are my top 10 picks of different interesting things I've seen around the world. Of course, I've seen a lot more than that, and I will see a lot more as I go through my project. I'll try and do a video on every single country, building a very, let's say, top level understanding of the world, and then I'll try to do more in-depth videos as time comes on. Right now, I'm very much at the beginning of this. I'm still a student, so I don't have that much time for these videos. I'll just do an hour here and an hour there. While it's fun for me, I also want this to be a channel that builds and builds, but primarily this is just a bit of fun, it's a bit of crack, nothing too serious, just looking at the indicators, looking at the economies, and looking at amazing pieces of infrastructure.